Hey guys, in this video I'm going to be sharpening this Falcon K2 White Whale kitchen knife on the new KME sharpening system. I'll be going up through all the iterations of stones, so 140, 300, 600, 1500, and then I'm going to be doing 3 of the 6 diamond lapping films. As I go through each step, I'm going to show you what it looks like under the microscope because I know that people like to see that level of iteration. This new KME, it's a much expanded version of the original KME system. It's got a double clamp here, which is great for larger kitchen knives. You can swap it back to a single if you wish. No issues there either. But for a kitchen knife, it's much, much easier than the previous KME and other systems which just have the single holding point. So very, very nice. These fixed angle systems, they basically hold the knife in a way that removes 2 of the 3 dimensions of potential error from the sharpener. So it holds the knife out at a 90-degree angle, sort of that way, and then the only angle you really need to worry about is the side to side of the sharpening stone, which is attached to this rod. The rod, of course, is held up and fixed in place as well. So very, very cool. I use an angle cube, and I will sharpen this kitchen knife to 15 degrees per side, which for a kitchen knife made from a good company and a good steel, like VG10 is a great kitchen knife steel for all the things it's going to come up against in the kitchen. So 15 degrees on a 59 to 60 VG10, that's the Rockwell hardness, absolutely fine. This knife here was particularly beaten up. So I'll show you onto the microscope now. Pretty bad looking edge, rust, dings, spots. It's obviously been cutting roast and hitting the roast fork, and all sorts of stuff's going on with it. It gets chucked in the dishwasher from time to time. It gets left out with meat juices on. All that sort of thing happens to this. It's a real workhorse beater of a kitchen knife. It's a great kitchen knife. It's a thicker stock, so it's not the most fine and uh, for radish, if you're making radish rosettes or anything like that. But it's just a good utility kitchen blade, and I'm certainly happy keeping a 15-degree edge on it. It's got a lot of stock behind it. Very sort of durable, tough knife for a kitchen knife, of course. So yeah, we're going to completely restore that edge. We're going to go up through the KME diamond stones and then through the plates. I'm going to show you bit by bit. I'm going to touch base with you through each step. And yeah, it should be an interesting video. Alrighty, so dialed in at 1500, color in the edge with a Sharpie so you can make sure you're taking off the right stuff at a glance. And I'm going to show you the sharpening in full, but at 8 times speed. Each sort of section of sharpening was about between 5 and 8 minutes depending on the stone. This heavy stone here I sharpened for about 6 minutes, and this was really just removing brute stock. You can see all that powder there. It actually magnetizes the edge just a little bit as you go, and so you sort of get like these little steel crystals hanging off the edge. It's a cool little effect, and you sort of stop and wipe those off periodically. But yeah, this is just bulk stock removal, just trying to get all those rust spots down, get those flat spots down, just sort of make an edge that you can build up from here, and narrowing the scratch pattern, because you'll see momentarily the scratch pattern is pretty severe, pretty heavy, as you'd expect from something that's removing this much steel this fast. This isn't necessary for every knife and for every sharpen, but when the steel is pretty badly damaged, it is definitely necessary. So that's the edge under the 140 grit. Still some notches and knocks taken out, but it's done a lot of the basic stock removal, and the next step up, the 300 grit stone, is going to take it from there. So 300 grit, still not quite an all-in-one sharpening grit. You still wouldn't really want to leave an edge at 300 grit unless it was in like a really high carbide steel, like maybe Maximet or something like that. You might be able to do a 300 grit edge and then just finish on a strop, but this is just generally, for most knives, it's going to be a refining or sometimes an initial sharpening stone. But I'm basically just paving the way to get to 600 and then 1500, and those are the steps that you really start to perhaps have a good working edge. So again, doing lots of steel removal, again trying to chase those rust spots up and chase those dings and nicks in the blade up, and looking under the microscope, it is definitely starting to close up a lot of the damage there. The scratch patterns are becoming a little bit more refined. You can see it's just sort of cut away some of that rust. There's always going to be some pits in this. The knife in the edge is just, I don't want to take it up any higher, so I'm going to work with what I've got. If I wanted to truly restore this, I would grind the entire edge off and just climb up a little bit higher, but then you'd be looking at a pretty thick edge. That's a bit of red fabric there from the wipe down. And those little crystals there, you can see they're like bits of the burr and just bits of scrap steel that are sitting on the edge due to the magnetizing effect of rubbing the metal diamond plate up and down against the blade there. So that's really super close, probably about 300 times. You can see the edge still looks pretty jagged, but that is mainly just the burr forming. That's a gap in the burr there, and again lots of that little steel hanging off the edge. So placing the 600 stone on now. 600, that's a lot of pretty standard factory edge settings that you often get a knife at about a 600 grit finish. It's when you look at it, it still looks kind of machined, but it's definitely sharp enough to be performing at this fineness. You'd strop it afterwards, of course, and deburr it and whatnot, but you could theoretically leave most knives at 600 and not have a single problem at all. I think a system like this KME is really made to get like the maximum amount of polish out of an edge, and so I'm certainly just using this as a stepping stone up towards the rest of the grit series. And you can see there, starting to get a little bit of reflectivity, a little bit of polish, definitely neatening up the very edge, like the burr is looking pretty good compared to that last shot with all those raggedy, bits hanging off. Still some of the magnetizing steel there, sort of hanging off little tendrils there, but everything's looking much neater. You can see the scratch pattern sort of has a bit of a swirl to it. That's just owing to my strokes. They're not exclusively all down and up, some of them are sort of across, and generally my last couple of strokes I just do a few pushing up towards the knife just to do some deburring, so that does have a bit of a mixing up effect on the scratch pattern. This one's 1500, so 1500 is really starting to be a polishing stone. So 1500 will often start to bring out a really nice reflectivity to the naked eye, and it certainly is preparing the edge, really narrowing down those scratches to get to the diamond plates, the diamond lapping films on the plates rather, because those guys really don't remove too much more stock. They really just do some very fine smoothing over of the scratch pattern that you've already got. So this is really kind of, I'd spend a little bit of extra work on this one. This and the 600 I often spend the most amount of time on, just because I feel like they're the last time you can really do some substantial stock removal. And looking there, you've got some mirror reflectivity there. It's hard to, doesn't really show up here on the microscope, but if I'm looking at this with the naked eye, you can sort of start to see that light bouncing back, and you can sort of start to see like the outline of your face, and just the blur. It's like a blurry, dirty mirror effect to the naked eye. But under the microscope, it's just really showing that the light bounces off it pretty easily. This is the other side, a little bit neater, perhaps, although perhaps some of the blade portions may just get a little bit more attention. Just a few little hairs and just fibers and stuff stuck on the blade. That's just from wiping it down with the cloth and whatnot. But yeah, some of the deeper scratches are there and will be there, but generally speaking, this honing series now, these lapping films, they're gonna like narrow down that larger matrix in between those big broad scratches that the earlier stones have put in. To the naked eye, you really start to see the reflectivity pop when you start doing the strops. This is the 9, I think 9, 3, and then 0.5 were the ones I chose out of the 6. It goes 9, 3, 1, 0.5, and 0.01 or 0.1. So pretty 9, 3, 5, 1, 0.5, and 0.1. So yeah, the 0.1 is very, very fine. So here you can really see the scratches are really getting tight. They're really getting smoothed over, swelled over, and yeah, nice reflective surface there, catching the light pretty well. This still looks, it's just so much detail owing to the microscope, but this is starting to look really, really clean to the naked eye especially. To get levels of detail where it's showing like no scratches at all, you would have to really slave over it. I might bring myself to do that one day. Still a little bit of burring hanging over the edge there, a bit of just raggedy, straggler bits of steel, but they will all come off over the next few steps. This is the 3 micron stropping film, and it's this step here that really brings out a crazy level of shine. This was the straw that breaks the camel's back into a really, really pretty fantastic looking polish. I'm looking forward to showing you the microscope version of this because it brings out an effect that I haven't really seen before. It was probably just owing to the specific filming circumstances I had, but when you have a look at this and see how it looks under a scope, it almost looks a little bit like galactic or something. Like you've got this is bits of honing oil as well, still sort of dried on the surface there, a bit of the cloth. But when I really found it hard to get the light to sort of catch it at all, and so I kind of got this really cool black effect across the edge there, like the light was bouncing really well off the face of the blade, which is obviously the top silver part. But yeah, just like really sort of swirly. It looks like a drop of water under a microscope or something on a black slide. Just really, really cool looking effect there. And of course, moving up another film, which is what I do next, going to the 0.5. That is a true shine, a true mirror, pretty much, as best as I could do in like an hour that I had to do this whole sharpening sitting. But yeah, as you see, really starts to catch the light. Those deep scratches are almost brought out even more because everything around them is basically completely flattened out and smooth. So it's sort of like it amplifies the scratches that you didn't get out under a microscope, but the light is truly like catching everything on the parts between those scratches, I guess. So I'm pretty happy with this edge, and of course, to actually use it and put it into motion, it was an extremely sharp edge. So I found like absolutely just gliding through paper, just using the same spot, pulling the paper past the knife. You could do really thin slices of just printer paper here. Very, very, very sharp indeed. Adjectives fail me just a little bit. Not sure if it's the sharpest knife I've ever had, but as a kitchen performer, 15 degrees at that sort of high level of polish, it's going to absolutely slice like crazy. Be able to do some really fine cutting, really controlled cutting, really steer that edge where you need it to go through whatever food you're going to be cutting. So yeah, look, these aren't for everyone. This isn't a needed type of sharpening. It's not essential, but if you're a knife enthusiast, I think there's a real joy in getting like these ultra high performance, ultra high polished edges. And I just find it's a really nice way to spend an afternoon, just sitting and sharpening away, and just spend as much or as little time as you want. And it really is one of those things, the returns for putting more time in means you get a really highly reflective, very, very nice edge indeed. Alright guys, that's the video for today. I'll be using the KME a bit more. Pretty good first impression. Not quite ready to review it yet. Going to keep sharpening, and stay tuned for more videos about this and lots of other knife stuff. Thanks.